Hey everyone, Mark Hespin here, host of On the Mark on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. Welcome on into this Wednesday midweek update video. Today I'm doing something that has really kind of been percolating in my brain for a while here now. When we talk NFL all the time, I'm one of the worst offenders of this. I always say, well, that's a top 10 guy. That's a top 10 guy. They have a top 10 guy. Especially when we talk about wide receiver position. There are so many incredible wide receivers in the NFL right now, let alone think about the guys who all just got drafted. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, Rome Odunze, 3 in the top 10 there. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm going to give you, in my opinion right now, the actual top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. But I'm also going to make the case why I actually think it's okay for us as football people, when we talk about football, when we talk about wide receivers especially, to say they're a top 10 guy, even though they may not be in my top 10 list. I'll explain. I actually think there are 30 top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. I'm being serious. I think there are 30 top 10 wide receivers. So let me explain. Let's start by going through my number 10. We'll go 1 through 10. I think the list is pretty uncontroversial. I think most people would agree with these are probably the 10 names that belong in the top 10 for the wide receivers. So number 1, Justin Jefferson. That's a no-brainer. Injuries. So first kind of hiccup in his career. We'll see how he bounces back. Also, this is a big year because it's the first year without Kirk Cousins. We know Justin Jefferson is extremely talented. But we also know that Kirk Cousins has been a great thing for Justin Jefferson to start his career. So what will he be like now with the Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy kind of quarterback carousel? That'll be an interesting thing to watch for Justin Jefferson, and maybe kind of crack open the door for someone else to dethrone him this time next year. I have Ja'Marr Chase number 2. I'm sorry, but Ja'Marr Chase to me is a person that I just can't get by the physical freak that he is and the eye test. I mean, yeah, you can maybe look at someone who had slightly better numbers, slightly better route running, but Ja'Marr Chase, when it comes down to just a complete baller, I think he's the only one in the league that can hold a candle to Justin Jefferson. I have him at 2. Tyreek Hill at number 3. I still think Tyreek Hill's a top 3 wide receiver. He led the league in reception yards last year, 1,799 yards, and did with 13 touchdowns. For a small guy, he's an elite route runner, still got blazing speed and incredible hands. I think his hands are still so underrated. Tyreek Hill, he's not the physical presence of a Justin Jefferson and Ja'Marr Chase, but he is maybe the technically best wide receiver in the NFL. I have him at 3. CeeDee Lamb at number 4. CeeDee Lamb, there's something about CeeDee that just makes it look effortless. He runs routes and it's just like, a hot knife running through butter. He can burn by you. He can jump over you. He's got incredible hands. Maybe he's too low on this list, but if you were telling me right now for my team, I could have a Justin Jefferson, a Ja'Marr Chase, a Tyreek Hill, or a CeeDee Lamb, I'd put all 3 of those guys ahead of CeeDee. But that's it. Everyone else, CeeDee is a line of demarcation where I think there are 4 elite A+ receivers. CeeDee's in that group. Everyone else here is a slight step down. All great players, don't get me wrong. I think a slight step down. The first guy who's just a hair off of CeeDee Lamb in the top 4, that's A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, little less speed, a little more physicality, especially than a Tyreek Hill and a CeeDee Lamb. He's big, he's strong. He will go up and wrestle the ball out of your hands. An incredible route runner, and a guy who's really fiery, really passionate, wants to win. Love A.J. Brown. I think he's elite. He's a top 5 guy. 6 through 10. Rank them kind of how you will. I think to me, this is the one that this order makes the most sense. DJ Moore at number 6. DJ Moore was 6 in reception yards last year in an offense with a Justin Fields and a Tyson Bagent that offensively passing-wise just wasn't good last year. He is someone who I think is a big play waiting to happen, whether it's over the top, whether it's an in route that a slant that he takes 80 yards to the house, a bubble screen that he takes 80 yards to the house. He can do things. He's small, compact, physical, but can still just go up and high point a ball for you if you need it. Love DJ Moore. Love him that he's on my team. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7. Him and DJ Moore are very similar beings. Amon-Ra St. Brown is small, undersized, but so strong, so physical, and a really, really sharp route runner. Love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's at 7. I'm going to put Mike Evans at number 9 and number 8, and then Davante Adams at 8. Kind of switching them ahead back and forth on these guys a lot. They're both towards the latter part of their career. I think Davante Adams has a little bit more of that precise route running. He's always been that guy, just elite footwork off the start. But Mike Adams' longevity, his health, his ability to just still run by guys on go routes and just with ease grab the ball, kind of like a CeeDee Lamb, but a physical, heavier, bigger athlete. Love those two guys. And at number 10, someone who in only 13 games last year, still had over 1,200 yards. He had more yards than Jamar Chase, who played 3 more games. He had more yards than Stephon Diggs, who played 4 more games than him. More yards than Davante Adams, who played 4 more games than him. He did it all with having 7 touchdowns as well in a very kind of tumultuous offense, and that's Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, when healthy, is still, to me, a top 10 talent, top 10 guy in the league. Obviously, Adams, Evans, Allen, at the end of their career, but right now they belong in those top 10 spots. So that's my top 10. If you had to put a gun to my head and say, Mark, who are your top 10 wide receivers in the NFL right now going into the season, those are my 10 guys. Here's now where I make the argument that I think you could make the argument. I know there are 20, but you can make the argument there are 30 top 10 wide receivers. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to start listing names right now. They're guys that I couldn't find room for in my top 10. Obviously, I just gave you my top 10. But I can make the case on any given Sunday, this is the person who's going to go off in fantasy for 210 yards, 3 touchdowns on 7 catches, and dominate a game. They're a guy that in a big playoff game, if they have the opportunity, will be unguardable, difference maker, take a ball to the house, high point a ball in the end zone on a fade, whatever it might be, and they help their team absolutely win the game. I think they are number 1 wide receivers, a lot of these guys I'm going to list, but they're just no room in the top 10. It's different when you talk about quarterbacks. Compare the idea to quarterbacks. You can make the argument there's probably about 13, 14, maybe 15 guys. You could say that's a top 10 guy. You get to that number like 9 spot, you're like, well, is it Trevor Lawrence, or is it Jalen Hurts, or is it Kyler Murray, or is it Dak Prescott? And you can filter it in and you can make the discussion. For these guys, I really do think, from spots like 8, 9, 10, you can make the argument for like 20 plus guys. So a guy like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp, a little injured, a little older, not as long success as a guy like a Mike Evans, a Keenan Allen, Davante Adams. But absolutely, if he's in your top 10, I wouldn't argue about it. And Puka Nacua, rookie year, but absolutely, if he's in your top 10, I'm not going to argue too much with you about it. Amari Cooper, he's a guy who just consistently puts up incredible numbers, very Mike Evans-like in that way. Year after year after year, consistent, productive. Absolutely, you can make the argument he's a top 10 wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel with the Niners, both of those guys, you can make the argument. DK Metcalf, Devontae Smith, George Pickens, Stephon Diggs, Chris Olave, all guys to me in that kind of next group of 10 where you kind of look from like 11 to 20. They all belong in the conversation. And on any given week, on a 3-game stretch, maybe from weeks 5 through 8, would it shock you if Devontae Smith has, multiple 110, 120, 150-yard games, multiple touchdowns, and helps the Eagles win 3 straight games? That wouldn't shock you at all. These are elite players. There's just so many elite wide receivers. To me, I can make the argument, honestly, I'll give you 10 more names. I just gave you 10 names from 11 to 20. Here's 10 more names that on any given Sunday, would they be maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL? Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson with the New York Jets, T. Higgins with the Cincinnati Bengals. Honestly, T. Higgins is the best number 2 in the NFL. You can make the argument besides maybe a Keenan Allen, depending on Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle, another great number 2 in the NFL. Drake London, Nico Collins. He was the number 1 guy for the Texans all last year. Nico Collins ended up with the 8th most receiving yards in the NFL last year. He's now a number 2 guy. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze, I think you absolutely could throw into that list as well, just based on the projection of them coming in. So, in conclusion, 9 minutes and 55 seconds into this video, I just gave you 30 different wide receiver names. Every one of those guys on any given week can be the number one wide receiver in the NFL, and it wouldn't shock me at all. When you're looking through the ticker on Sunday and it shows you passing leaders, all right, I guess the top 10, receiving leaders, any one of those guys could be at the top of that list with multiple touchdowns, 200 plus yards on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 catches, whatever it might be. I think there's a difference 1 through 4. Jefferson, Chase, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb. Those 4 guys I think are kind of in a slight category of their own. And then I look at A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those 3 guys are firmly in the top 10. They're not going anywhere. I prefer to lean towards the older guys. That's why I went with Davante Adams and Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. They're in my top 10. But from Amari Cooper to Devontae Smith to George Pickens to DK Metcalf to Puka Nacua, Jalen Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, so many guys. I truly believe right now in the NFL, we have 30 top 10 wide receivers. I hope that starts to make sense, right? There are not 20 top 10 quarterbacks. There just aren't. We know. We can go through the quarterbacks. There's not. There's maybe 12, 13 top 10 quarterbacks, but there's not 20. There's definitely not 30. In running backs, it's easy to find the line of demarcation. There are barely 10 top 10 running backs right now. You can make the argument another position that's really deep right now is offensive tackle. There's some really great offensive tackles. You make the argument there's probably 15 top 10 tackles in the NFL, especially because there's 2 on each offensive line. You can really make the strong argument for that. Wide receivers, I firmly believe right now, there are about 30 guys. You can make the argument there are top 10 wide receivers. My top 10, Jefferson, Chase, Hill, Lamb, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore at 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7, Mike Evans at 8, Davante Adams at 9, Keenan Allen at 10. So there you go. There's my top 10 wide receivers in the NFL, and that is my case for making the case that there are 30 top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if it does or doesn't, and who you would really disagree with to be in your top 10, who's not in my top 10 firmly. Follow me on all social media channels at Mark Hespen, MarkHespen. That's Twitter/X. That's Instagram, and that's here. Obviously, like and subscribe on the YouTubes. Awesome. Thanks, guys.